Well, I've been in the business my entire adult life. I started doing theater in high school, majored in it in college, and then was an actor for a while. I did some regional theater, moved to New York, and I did theater in New York. Started doing a little bit of directing there, but was still really pursuing an acting career. Then I got into arts education. Then there were some big changes, and I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, to become the director of education for the two-time Tony Award-winning Cincinnati Playhouse. And I started doing a lot of directing there, largely theater for young audiences for the theater's outreach touring program, where I developed new plays for young audiences. We did all kinds of things. When I came to Wharton in 2008, Mike Brand, who was our executive director, and I created Wharton Center Theater Productions because we wanted to do our own productions of plays that were not necessarily really commercial, plays that really might be on sort of the cutting edge like this. And so by creating our own productions, we were allowed to do that. Of course, Wharton is known for Broadway, and and that's great. We do Broadway, we do these big dance pieces and music. But we thought there was a need for maybe a theater that was stuff you might see like the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So that's when we created this series that we've been doing since 2009. And Thrill Me, the Leopold and Loeb Story is part of that.
The series.
Yeah, good question. I actually saw the piece at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival about 4 or 5 years ago and was very taken with it then. I liked the music. The music's very mysterious, very dark. It kind of, really creeps in on you in a fun sort of way. And I always wanted to direct a psychological thriller. I've never directed anything in that genre. I also think that, the story of Leopold and Loeb doesn't go away. Even though it was almost 100 years ago, or close to 100 years ago, people are still talking about it. There was a book that was written in 2018 about it that didn't necessarily have new evidence, but she approached the story in a different way. So people, it just keeps coming back and coming back. People are fascinated by this. I think they're fascinated because at the time it was a gay relationship that was very closeted, but also they're just fascinated why two young men that were so privileged and had their lives mapped out for them would throw it away like that for the thrill of it, and the play really explores why. So that's what's fascinating about the play besides the music, and that's why I was attracted to it. It's, I compare it to a lot of Stephen Sondheim's kind of stuff. So yeah, it is very dialogue based. And the actors are very aware of that. They very easily can recreate that. So I think that's one of the things that Stephen Dolgonoff throws in that makes this interesting is just they're so connected together. When they're connected, and then they're also very abrasive with each other. They fight a lot because of what they're drawing each other into. So that's where so much of the major conflict comes from. So I think the music clearly reflects that. Well, I did a lot of research. I mean, I read a lot of books on Leopold and Loeb. There's the American Experience documentary on Leopold and Loeb, which if people are interested, it's a very good documentary and available online about the case. And it just goes through the whole ramifications of what happened. And then, as I said, just read a lot of stuff online. I had several opportunities to talk to Stephen Dolgonoff, who wrote the music, the lyrics, and the book. I don't think there's anyone in the country that knows more about Leopold and Loeb than he does. He's had over 150 productions of the play. There's ongoing productions all over the world. And he's also a tremendous expert on it. So I spent a lot of time emailing him, and then I went to New York twice in the last 6 months, and I had a chance to have dinner with him and talk to him about the play. That was really helpful because, as he said, there's a historical element, and the play follows the story, but it diverts in some ways. It doesn't follow it exactly the way it happened. And Stephen says at some point, you got to then focus on the text of the play and do the play. So the research is important. It's great to look at the time period, the style, and so forth, but eventually it comes back to the script. Well, it's not a play like some plays I've directed where, the world could be a better place if. It tells a story about the consequences of a bad relationship. And when one person so dominates the mind of another and what they're willing to do and how the conniving between the two of them really blows them apart, brings them together and blows them apart. So I think, thinking about relationships and, when your relationship becomes toxic at some point, get out of it. What do you do to either get out of it or remedy that? And these two guys ended up in prison together until Richard was killed because of it. Nathan could have gotten out of this at any time, and he didn't. He continued to follow Richard to the point of killing an innocent young boy. So I think there's some things to learn there.
Thank you.
Oh, so it's interesting. I might want to put a tag on here real quick. The ad in the New York papers, the ad from the New York production, and I think I talk about it in the program, sort of tagged the play as relationships can be murder. So that's the story of Leopold and Loeb. You can quote me on that one.